Hey guys! So today we are continuing my declutter series, and this is going to be kind of a combination between a depotting video and a decluttering and organizing my single shadows. So if you saw my eyeshadow palette declutter, these are the ColourPop In a Trance and Miss Bliss palettes. I decided to declutter these from my palette collection, depot all the shades, and then I'm only going to be keeping a select few shades. I'm not sure how many it'll be yet, but really just the ones that I feel like are something that I don't already have in my collection. And then from there we're going to take a look at all of my single shadows. I have some in here, and then I also have some that I've depotted from other palettes. So these are from my BH Lost in Los Angeles palette. I think I'm going to keep all of these just all together. And then I also have a few from my Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. So I just want to round up all my magnetic singles together, make sure I'm only keeping what makes sense to keep, and then organize them into my magnetic palettes. I have a bunch of different sized ones, so I just want to get them in some semblance of organization. So let's start with these ColourPop palettes. I also recently saw a video from Too Much Tosh where she depotted all her ColourPop palettes and decluttered them, and that was kind of what inspired me to do the same, so I'm going to link her video below. But let's go ahead and start. So these pans are magnetic, and I just took this magnet from my fridge, and you can just basically put it over the shades and it pops right out. So super easy to depot these. This one doesn't want to come out. Alright, so popped all the shades out except for this one. This one did not want to come out, the pressed glitter from the In a Trance palette, but I actually already know I'm going to be decluttering that, actually along with the pressed glitter from the Miss Bliss palette, just because I just don't use pressed glitters. They're not technically eye safe, so I'm just kind of scared to put them on my eyes, so I just never use them. So that one I am going to declutter. Okay, so I also brought out my BH Cosmetics Lost in Los Angeles palette here so I can compare these shades to these, because I do think there are going to be some similar shades, and I don't want to keep anything that overlaps. Okay, so one shade I definitely know I want to keep. This is the Periwinkle shade from In a Trance. That was the shade Own Your Power. This one I definitely want to keep. I don't have a whole lot of periwinkles in my collection, especially not more purple leaning ones like this. So I'll put my keeps up here. The Lost in Los Angeles palette has this whole row of peachy shades. Okay, so that right there is this peach shade from Lost in Los Angeles, and then this one next to it is the peach shimmer from Miss Bliss. I have hit pan in this shade, so I've gotten good use out of it, but it's also just not that unique of a shade, and I think it's similar enough to that BH Cosmetics one that this one I can go ahead and pass on. Alright, so this shade right here, this is like a frosty white to blue duochrome from In a Trance. I have another single, or really a depotted single. This is from the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. It's also a similar kind of frosty duochrome shade, so let me swatch those two. So there's the In a Trance one, there's the Shared Planet. They're definitely a little bit different, but I don't really feel like I need two of a similar shade like this, so I think I will keep the Shared Planet one and pass on the ColourPop one, just because I have a nice even number of these Shared Planet shadows that I don't really want to declutter any of those. So I think I'll keep that one and pass on this ColourPop one. One that I do want to keep, this is a really light pastel blue shade from In a Trance. With all my pastel shadows, I don't really think I have any other super pastel like sky blue shades like this, so that one I do want to keep. Let me now take a look at all of the sequin shades from these two palettes. I was talking recently about how I really don't care for shades like this. These are like those matte shadows that have sparkle mixed in. So probably don't want to keep too many of these just because that formula gets on my nerves. The only one from here that I actually do want to keep is this one. This is from Miss Bliss, and it's this kind of like dusty beigey peach color. Here are the other three like matte peaches from that palette. You can see this one is just, I don't know, there's just something about this specific shade that I really love. Even though it is sequined, which I don't love, I love the color itself. So I'm actually going to keep that one. So then the rest of these sequin shades, I think I can let go of. I don't really feel that attached to this purple one. I think it's actually quite similar to this one in Lost in LA. So that one I'll pass on. And then these two pinks, I have another really light pastel pink in my Clarity So Mermazing palette that's similar to this. So I already have that shade covered in my collection, so I'm gonna get rid of that. Yeah, actually, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and pass on the rest of these sequin shades. This blue one is pretty, but it's not that unique. I have plenty of other blues in my collection. This like light, almost like cantaloupe peach color, also pretty, but I don't really need it. And same with this mid-tone pink. I just feel like I have plenty of shades similar enough to that, and I just don't really dip into that shade that much anyway. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and pass on the rest of those sequin shadows. So here's what we're left with. These three are from Miss Bliss. These other two matte peaches, wow, these are actually so similar to each other, and they're also really similar to these matte peaches in Lost in Los Angeles. I have plenty of other peaches. Yeah, I don't feel like I need to keep those. Sure, let's see this. Let me swatch this pink shade. So that's the pink shimmer from Miss Bliss. That is pretty, but I really, like, most of the time when I was using my Miss Bliss palette, I was really only reaching into the peach side. I didn't really use this pink very often. It's a pretty shade, but I just don't feel like it stands out compared to other shadows I have, so that one I'll pass on. And then these last three are all from In a Trance. We have another pink shimmer. This is more of like a Super Shock formula. A little bit cooler toned than the one from Miss Bliss. I really don't wear pink shades like that very often. I don't feel like I'm gonna miss this one, so I'll pass that on. And there's these two purples. This one is kind of fun. It's like a shimmery periwinkle. That I like. That's actually fun. I do really enjoy periwinkle, and I don't have a whole lot of periwinkles in my collection. I don't feel like I have anything else quite like that. Maybe I do, but I'm looking at all my other palettes. I don't really think any of my other palettes have a shade like that, so I think I will keep that one. That one will be pretty with the matte periwinkle that I'm keeping. And then this last one is this light purple matte. I have this whole row of purples here in the Lost in Los Angeles palette. This one actually looks pretty similar to those. I guess a little more muted, but I don't really feel like I'm gonna miss this one either. So, wow, okay, so I was not expecting to get rid of so many of those, but these are all the ones I'm getting rid of, which is the vast majority, and then these are the 4 I'm keeping, so only keeping those 4. Feeling good about that. I do want to label these with the shade names just so that I can reference them. Okay, so now I want to go through the rest of my singles, a bunch of other magnetic singles here. I think I'm going to probably get rid of a few of these, but I just want to compare them to the other things I have here. Take those out. So those are the 4 we just looked at. I also have these 2 pastel purple shades from ColourPop. We have Howlin' and Prowlin'. I've had these for so long, but I really like these. I don't have very many other pastel purples in my collection. Of course, I have these from the Lost in Los Angeles, but these aren't really very pastel. They're more just like mid-tone. So those I'm going to keep, especially because my Clarity So Mermazing palette, which has a lot of my pastels, actually doesn't have any purples. So it's nice to have those if I do want to add a little purple in. This is a duochrome from ColourPop. It's the shade Earthshine. Also really pretty. That one I'm also going to keep just because it's kind of a fun shade and don't have anything else like it. One from ColourPop I actually don't think I would miss. This is the shade Thank You Next. It's a fun color, but it's so flaky. Every time I use this, it ends up being kind of annoying to use. And I don't mean like sometimes flaky doesn't bother me, but this one is like, it's like flaky and dry. I always want it to look more metallic and foiled, but it just kind of ends up looking more dull than I want. And I also just don't find this shade to be the most flattering on me. I think it's got too much of like a copper shift to it, so that one I will declutter. This is Snake Eyes from ColourPop, one of the few like more neutral singles that I have. I really like this one. Great for a one and done look. Then we have Grandstand from Makeup Geek. This right here is the oldest product in my entire collection, and I do really like this shade. It's actually a really pretty rose gold. I would like to hit pan on this. I'm gonna probably put that in my project pan at some point this year, so that one I am gonna keep. Then we have another bronzy shade. This is the Natasha Denona Single Shadow in Silk. I did hit pan on this earlier this year, And part of me wants to keep this because it's like the only Natasha Denona shadow that I own, and it's just kind of nice to have. I got this as a point perk from Sephora a long time ago, but between this one and Grandstand from Makeup Geek, I kind of prefer the Makeup Geek one just because it has more of a rosy undertone. And I mean, I like this one sometimes, but I definitely have shades like this in other palettes. So even though the quality of this is nice, I feel like I'm ready to just pass this on. I don't really feel like I need to be holding on to this. So get rid of that. This is a nice pastel mint green from ColourPop. This is the shade La Playa. I really like this one too, so I'm gonna keep that. I'm also going to keep this lime green. This is Clarity Capri Sun. If you saw my palette declutter, I did declutter the Ace Beauté Envy palette, which also had a shade like this in it. That was one of the main shades in that palette that I really liked, but I decluttered that one knowing that I still had this single that I could use. And I really enjoy lime green shadow sometimes. I think this is so pretty just all over the lid. So that one I am going to keep. I'm going to keep these two Clarity shades as well. We have Playboy and Smoking Mirrors, both really beautiful duochrome shades. I think this, especially Playboy, pairs really nicely with some of these other like pastel purples that I'm keeping. Okay, here's one I think I wouldn't miss. This is the Clarity single in the shade Lemon Drop. Really bright, like electric lemon shade. I feel like I have enough yellow in my collection between my, actually have them right over here, between my Ace Beauté Flora palette and my Hard Candy Buzz quad. Obviously this one is more like even brighter yellow, but I've hardly worn this shade. I don't think I've worn this at all in the last year, so I think it just doesn't make sense for me to have this. It's a fun color. Even though it is different from some of these yellows, if I'm gonna wear yellows, I'm usually going for slightly more, I mean, these aren't really muted yellows, but a little bit more earthy yellows, I guess, whereas this is just so bright and electric. So this one I am gonna pass on. And then I also have this orange shadow from Clarity. This is the shade Hot Cheeto. I used to be a lot more into the idea of orange eyeshadow than I am now. I feel like often it just, I don't know, I just don't love the way it looks on me these days. And this is another one that I just feel like I haven't used in the last year, so I don't really want to keep holding on to it. So I'll go ahead and pass on both of these. These are really fun. They're just not really colors that I wear anymore. And then these 6 here are my Shared Planet shadows. These came from the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. I am going to keep all 6 of these. I really like all of them. I like the way they work together, and I like having these if I want to do like a custom palette with some of my other singles. I feel like it's nice to have a few neutral shades, and then I also have this really fun blue duochrome as well. Alright, so I'm not really counting my BH Lost in Los Angeles shades because I'm actually, I want to keep all of these together. I want to keep the entire palette just because I know a lot of you also have this palette, and I want to be able to create looks with the palette as a whole, if that makes sense. So I'm not counting that towards my totals here. So comparing the singles I'm keeping to the ones I'm getting rid of, these are the ones I'm getting rid of. I'm getting rid of 18. And I'm keeping 19. So I decluttered basically half of my single shadow collection. Amazing. Next, to figure out how to organize all of these. Because I have so much extra room here in this empty magnetic palette, which by the way, this magnetic palette is from Shop Miss A. They have great affordable magnetic palettes. And because I have so much extra space in this one, I think I'm going to use this to put the rest of my colorful and pastel singles. Okay, I didn't like the way these big pans looked in here, and I actually have this Clarity trio that fits those Clarity pans perfectly, and because I'm only keeping 3 Clarity singles, I decided to just put those in here, so that's where those will live, and that's actually kind of a pretty little trio of shimmers. So that's where I'll keep those. Alright, so as for the rest of these, the square ones are my Shared Planet singles. This is ColourPop Snake Eyes. This is Makeup Geek Grandstand. I feel like all of these go together pretty well, especially because I have quite a few neutral shades in there. So I think I'm going to put those in this smaller magnetic palette that I have from Shop Miss A. So let's see. Keep all my... I still need to take the glue off of these Shared Planet pans. A lot of you guys told me that rubbing alcohol should get it off, so I'm going to try that, but we just ran out of rubbing alcohol, so still need to get some more. But for now, I still have that on there. Yeah, I really like the way those 6 shades go together. And then we just have these 2 round pans. Yeah, I like that. It's pretty. Okay, I arranged this in a slightly more aesthetically pleasing manner. Still not great, but that's the thing I don't love about single shadows, is that they're all different shapes and sizes, but I love being able to just keep a select few shades from different palettes if I want to, or being able to build a custom palette. Alright, so I went ahead and put all my decluttered singles into this magnetic palette for now. Not really sure how I'm gonna rehome those yet, but we'll see. I might end up putting some of them back into these palettes as well. But yeah, I'm feeling so good, loving this little curated collection of singles now. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today and decluttering with me. I hope you had fun. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hopefully I will talk to you very soon in my next video. Bye!